A very good evening to all the students of Class 11. Today I'm going to take up the poem Father to Son, written by Elizabeth Jennings. And we're going to do a few MCQs. First question, on what note does this poem begin? A. Autobiographical, B. Descriptive, C. Narrative, D. None of the above. So the right choice or answer is autobiographical. If you look at the poem, the first line, the first word says, I do not understand. So that's personal, I. So it begins on an autobiographical note. Then if you go down and see in the last stanza, the first line in the last stanza says, Father and son, we both must live on the same globe and the same land. Here, it becomes generalized. It becomes, like it's a message to all the sons and fathers on this earth. Okay. So here it begins on an autobiographical note, but towards the end it takes on a different note. Second question, on what note does the poem end? A. Universal, B. Regional, C. National, D. None of the above. So the right answer is A. Universal, because you're talking about the globe. Globally, universally, all fathers and sons must share a good relationship and they must live on the same land together, okay, in a very harmonious manner. So it starts on an autobiographical note and ends on a universal note. Third question, what is the poem all about? A father's happiness for his son, B. A father's anger at his son, C. A father's lament or helplessness or cry for the generation gap with his son, D. None of the above. So the poem is all about a father's lament or cry for the generation gap with his son. Question 4. Which figure of speech is highlighted in the lines, I do not understand this child, though we have lived together now in the same house for years? Options, A. Metaphor, B. Simile, C. Situational irony, D. None of the above. So we know it's not a metaphor because no comparison has been made. It's not a simile, no comparison with like or as. So option C, situational irony, is the correct choice. It's ironic because of a situation that they have lived in the same house for years, but they are still strangers. Here, for your information, I would just like to add the three kinds of irony that we talk about. Situational irony, as we have experienced in this poem. Verbal irony, when we say something and we mean something else, ironic, okay? And third is dramatic irony, that when something happens and then it just takes a dramatic turn or a twist, then we say dramatic irony. Next question. Which image is highlighted or which imagery is highlighted in the following lines? Yet have I killed the seed I spent or sown it where the land is his and none of mine. What imagery? A. Political, B. Social, C. Agrarian, D. None of the above. Now here, in these lines, the poet is talking about a seed and it has been sown. So it's not political, it's not social, it talks about agriculture, okay? The seed, the sun has been compared to a seed. So we are talking about a plant. The seed has been sown. So here we are referring to an agrarian imagery, agriculture. A-G-R-A-R-I-A-N. Question 6. In the line, I would have him prodigal, returning to his father's house, the home he knew. Highlight the reference used, reference or allusion, A-L-L-U-S-I-O-N. Now, options are A. Mythological, B. Historical, C. Biblical, D. None of the above. Now here, the right answer is biblical reference or biblical allusion, because this story has been taken from the Bible. And it talks about a farmer having many sons, and one of the sons takes his share of the money and property and fortune and everything, and he moves out. And he spends all that money extravagantly and lavishly. And when, the going is good, when he had a lot of money, he had many friends. But when his money was exhausted, finished, then ultimately he had nowhere to go. So then the father, was ready to take that son back, forgiving him for what he had done. So this is a biblical allusion or a biblical reference. Next question. Which virtue or noble quality of the father is depicted when he is willing to follow to get back his son? So the options are love, B, peace, C, forgiveness, D, none of the above. So the noble quality that the poet has talked about is forgiveness. Okay, to err is human, to forgive is divine. So it's almost like God forgiving us. So forgiveness is a great noble quality. Next question. Which negative emotion arises from grief? A, anger, B, frustration, C, bitterness, none of the above. Now we are going to refer to the poem. Okay, of course, so many things arise from grief. All these things arise from grief, but in this poem particularly, they have clearly, categorically mentioned that it was anger arising from grief. So we are going to choose option A, that is anger. Question 9. Father and son talk like strangers because there is dash between them. You have to fill the gap. A, enmity, B, hatred, C, generation gap, D, none of the above. So we're going to use option C, generation gap. Next question. Which figure of speech is used in the line, silence surrounds us? A, personification, B, metaphor, C, alliteration, D, none of the above. Now we know that it is not personification, neither is it a metaphor, nor none of the above. So the choice that we are going to make is alliteration, because S, the consonant S, has been repeated. S in silence, S in surrounds, and S in us. Okay, so alliteration. Question 11. Why is there the need to build up this relationship once again? What are the reasons for this relationship to be strengthened or to be built up again from the scratch, kind of a thing? A, due to misunderstanding. B, due to lack of tolerance. C, due to communication gap. D, all of the above. So here all of the above will be the right choice, because their relationships are strained due to misunderstanding, lack of tolerance, communication gap. So all of the above. Then we go on to the next question. The extract goes, yet have I killed the seed I spent or sown it where the land is his and none of mine. Okay, I'm repeating this extract for a different question. Whom has the speaker killed? A, relationship. B, trust. C, tolerance. D, all of the above. So here, because their relationship is strained, there's lack of trust, there's lack of tolerance, so I would choose all of the above. Next question. What is the mental status of the speaker? A, he is happy. B, he is confused. C, he is miserable. D, he is astonished. So we know the status of the speaker, that he is miserable. He is in dire distress. He is sad, grieved. So he is miserable. And who's the speaker? The father. Next question. Why does the father call his son prodigal? A, the son is arrogant. B, he does not consult his father. C, the son is a spendthrift. D, none of the above. So the choice, as I've told you in the previous question, would be the son is a spendthrift. Next question. Why would I forgive him? Okay. A, he wants to reconcile with him. B, he wants to start afresh. C, he wants him to be sensible. D, all of the above. Now this I stands for the father, okay? So the father wants to reconcile with him. He wants to begin afresh, okay? And he wants him to be sensible. And so option D would be correct, all of the above. Next question. What does sorrow in the poem refer to? A, misunderstanding between the father and the son. Communication gap between the father and the son, generation gap and intolerance between the father and son. D, all of the above. So here I would choose all of the above, because there's misunderstanding, there's a communication gap, generation gap, intolerance, all these fulfill, in a very comprehensive manner for the word sorrow. Next question. In the poem, who is expressing his helplessness? A, the poet. B, the father. C, the son. None of the above. So that's very clear. The answer is option B, the father. Okay. Next question. How do the father and the son behave like? A, close friends. B, family members. C, enemies. D, strangers. So it's very clearly written that we live like strangers, okay? So the answer is option D, strangers. Next question. The speaker longs for A, freedom. B, the son's alienation. C, the son's companionship. D, rapprochement with the son. Now, rapprochement, reconciliation, patching up, okay? So, option D is the correct choice. The speaker longs for a reconciliation with the son. Next question. The speaker or the father is in a dash mood. Choose one of them. A, reflective mood. B, sad. C, sorrowful. D, happy. So the closest choice is the father or the speaker is in a reflective mood. He's trying to reflect, trying to analyze, trying to reason out what went wrong, where things went wrong. So he is in a reflective mood because he wants to start, it's mentioned in the poem that he wants to begin, and bring up that same relationship which they shared in his childhood, the son's childhood. So reflective. Next question. The word seed sown highlights which figure of speech? A, personification. B, metaphor. C, simile. D, none of the above. So seed sown, seed stands for metaphor, okay? The figure of speech which we will choose is metaphor, okay? Because seed has been used for the sun, so metaphorically, okay? Next question. What does "we each put out an empty hand" suggest? A, there is no money to share. B, there is no food to share. C, their efforts to patch up are in vain. D, none of the above. So there's no question of money or food. It was that they were both trying to make an effort, but their effort was not successful. It was in vain, without any success. V-A-I-N, in vain, okay? So their efforts to patch up were in vain is the correct choice. Next question. Father and son, we both must live on the same globe and the same land. What does the word globe suggest? A father's appeal. B, a universal appeal. C, a son's appeal. D, none of the above. So the right choice would be option B, a universal appeal to all the fathers and sons all over the globe, all over the world, to live together harmoniously. Next question. When did the father share a good relationship with his son? A, never. B, in childhood. C, always. D, none of the above. So the correct choice is B, in childhood he shared a good relationship. Next question. His father's house, the home he knew. Now in this line, when was the house a home for the father and son? A, never at all. B, in the son's childhood. C, in the father's old age. D, always. So the correct choice would be in the son's childhood. A house is just a structure, but a house turns into a home when there is love, there is warmth, there is closeness, and there's happiness. So all that makes a house a home. There's caring, sharing, sympathy, concern. So all that turns a house into a home. So that was there only in the son's childhood. Next question. Why is the father in grief? A, for scolding his son. B, for turning out his son from the house. C, for not understanding his son and sharing his likes and dislikes. D, all of the above. Now here we would choose option C. The father is in grief for not understanding his son and not being able to share his likes and dislikes. Okay. Next question. What does the poem poignantly express? Poignantly. Now the spelling is Poignantly. The G is silent. So we won't say poignantly, we'll say poignantly. Okay, G is silent. And poignantly means touching, sad, something that you regret, heart moving, it touches your heart. So what does the poem poignantly express? A, helplessness of the father. B, sadness of the father. C, grief of the father. D, all of the above. So here we would take all of the above, or if you get some other choices, because these are the ones that I've made, but supposing in the paper you get other choices, then you should choose helplessness of the father, because that is the main thing that has been highlighted in this poem. There's sadness, of course, there's grief also, but mainly it is the helplessness of the father, and that is why he's lamenting, he's crying, to patch up. Next question. Who is the poet of this poem? Now, I told you, children, please learn up all the authors and the poets, because there's no point in losing out. Each mark counts, and why lose out on something that you can easily, attain. So, John Keats, Marcus Nathan, Elizabeth Jennings, or Walt Whitman. So, the poet is Elizabeth Jennings. Next question. Last one. What do you think is responsible for the alienation between a father and his son? Options. Now, this is a generalized question that I put between a father. If I had said the father, that means I'm talking about the father who's in the poem. Lack of understanding and adjustment. A, on the part of the older generation. I'll repeat. A, lack of understanding and adjustment on the part of the older generation. 2, not taking children seriously. Or B, C, looking down upon the younger generation. D, none of the above. So here the closest option would be lack of understanding and adjustment on the part of the older generation. So I have tried to, bring out everything that is here in this poem. This line, this child is built to my design. It talks about the resemblance, the way the father wanted to resemble. The son looked like the father. Everything was there, but only it was just that physical part. But the emotional part and the mental part, they did not match at all. So this is a universal appeal for all, generations and all people on this earth to actually live together and to bridge up this communication gap or this so-called generation gap and try to understand each other, So both sides need to come together actually, Only then it can be possible, because that was the father's problem, that he was, he turned angry, and then from that there was grief in his heart, there was sadness in his heart. And when there's grief and sadness, why was there grief and sadness in his heart? Because he felt victimized, okay, that he's become a victim of the situation. And when you have that feeling of victimization, then that produces anger later on, when you think that for no fault of yours, you are being victimized, so anger brews up from there, okay? So that is all, I think, children. So I hope I've been able to reach across to you all. If you have any problems, please pen them down in the comment section and I will try to sort them out. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you all. All the best, children.